We are live. Daytime fantasy football episode of Aces Up. I'm host Joe Carlton, and tonight I have a very big guest for everybody. You all know who he is. It's the tight end whisperer, Andrew Cooper. How are you doing tonight, Coop? This evening, this morning.
Yeah. It's the daytime episode, man. You got to remember, dude. You got to get on my schedule, the new dad schedule, man. So yeah, always great to see you, man. Always good to chop it up with the local guys, the Boston boys. So nice. I'm excited, man. Thanks for having me on.
So this is episode 51. Now I know we had discussed, making you a possible episode 50 and like doing some cool stuff with it, but we end up not making that happen. Your wife gave birth to your second child, second girl. So you're 2 times a girl dad, but episode 51 is really cool because if you think about it, Super Bowl 51 was like the best Super Bowl ever, I think, in our eyes, at least. We came back we were down 28-3 with like 8 minutes left in the third quarter, and we came back and won that game and claimed our 5th Super Bowl title. So that's that's kind of special. I think that's a unique little twist that you're my guest for that episode 51. So I thought I'd throw that out there.
I love it, dude. Best game all time, man. Like a lot of people, I was up against it at halftime. Me and the boys,
we were down and out. Yeah, we were down and out for sure. Everybody, and then they'd be lying if they said they weren't.
Hey, we got it done. And again, that's one of those ones where, to me, best Super Bowl all time. And I think to a lot of people, it would be. I think the only thing that stops people is the Patriots fatigue, right? Like if that was the Patriots' first Super Bowl or second Super Bowl, then everybody would be a little more on board with, okay, best all time. But because it was Tom Brady, and that speaks to how great Tom Brady and Belichick were, people kind of looked at it like, you know what? It's not that special because that's just what they do. You know what I mean? So to me, still the best all time. But yeah, I guess
it's close. Yeah, it's close. But yeah, you're right. It could. The first Super Bowl could carry more sentimental value. I remember
exactly.
That right, like the senior in high school.
If it's anybody else. If anybody else did that, it would have been unexpected. But because it's Tom Brady, it's like, yeah, of course Tom Brady can do that.
Jamie's in the chat. Shout out to the chat and everybody tuning in live. Appreciate you. Hit the like, subscribe to the Sports Affiliation if you're not. You 2 times girl dad and right in the heart of draft season. What's that been like? Tell us a little bit about that. What do you how do you get around that?
I've been here before, right? 3 years ago. So my daughter's birthday, July 30th. My first daughter, she's 3 years old, and my second daughter was born August 2nd. So, literally 1 month before kickoff. But the thing about it is if it was in April or whatever, I'd take a little more time off. But the beauty of this job is I work from home. So I've just been, doing my best to stay up late with the baby and let my wife sleep. And, I sent in an article last night at midnight. It's like you just got to shift your hours and work your hours when you can, that's the beautiful thing of this job is that as far as writing articles go, whether I write them from 9 to 5 or whether I write them from 11 a.m. to 3 a.m., like you just got to find the time. Sleep when the baby sleeps, right? Those are the rules. And I couldn't be more happy. I mean, Lainey, my oldest, is just the right age to like actually be able to help a little bit. If she was any younger, it'd be a problem, but she can, she can go potty now on her own. She can, when I say go find your shoes, 50% of the time she actually goes and finds them, which, I'll take that. So like, it's a beautiful thing, man. But yeah, the timing, a little tough, dude. And it doesn't get that much easier. It's definitely worth it. One warning out there for people, you'll hear people say things like, oh, my first daughter was good. And then my son, he was bad. There's no such thing as just a good baby. They have to be up every 2 to 3 hours to eat, no matter what. Like you there's no getting around it. Like you don't ever just have a baby and then they just, this one came out great, and they sleep 7 hours a day, and 2 days in they said dada, and now they're all potty trained. Like it's a grind no matter what. But so is fantasy football, so just got to keep grinding.
That's it, man. I got 2 myself. They're 11 and 7 now, but I went through those days and we kept it spread apart. Like you got 2. Is it a 3-year difference between
3 years? Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. See, that's a good amount. Three or more is nice, especially if you only plan on having 2. I don't know about your future plans, but
we'll see. Depends who you ask, man. You ask me. 2 Two is enough. But you ask the wife, and she hasn't ruled anything out. We'll say.
Nice. All right. So I want to touch a little bit on your involvement with Fantasy Cares and Scott Fishbowl Live Boston coordinating these things. What's that experience like? I know it's a lot of hard work involved. I seen how stressful it can be at times during the draft when things are getting hectic and the venue's like you're gonna wrap up soon and whatever, so you try to squeeze everything in and make sure it goes smooth. And every time it's great. So, but you still get that. I feel like there's a little pressure behind it. I don't know. You want to talk about that?
It's like a lot of things, man. And this year, you could tell this year a little more stressful than others as I'm taking on more work. You know what I mean? And I think next year, I've kind of, now that this year I took on a lot more of it, we'll be able to delegate a little better, maybe a little less stressful next year. But it's one of those things where, like anything, uh, great things do take hard work, and you got to put in that work to get there. So along the way, there's a lot of coordination. Big shout out to the guys like John Bosch, who really keeps everybody on point. And then we have, Carla does an incredible job with the decorations, and obviously Bob Gilchrist is super plugged in on getting things set up and getting a lot of the prizes and all that. My job, as you know, is to be a big loudmouth, right, Joe? Like my job is to get there and try and get everybody excited and hyped up and make sure everybody understands like that it's a privilege to be in the Scott Fish Bowl. It's a privilege to just be in that position, to just be somebody who has established himself like yourself in this community as not just a sharp fantasy player, but also a person who has goodwill and who people respect, because there's a lot of people that want to be in this tournament. And it doesn't mean if you're not in that you don't deserve to be in. But the people that do get in generally deserve it. Like Scott has a system of keeping track of things that is actually incredible, making sure the right people get in. So when you do get to that day, it is a privilege. And it's a reminder of what it's really about, which is raising as much money as possible to help people who don't have those kind of privileges, right? And the payoff is when we get to go on the Target trip and buy all the toys and take all the pictures. And for me, I was originally just kind of a guy like Bob just asked me to talk at the first one. That's all I did is he just said, "Hey, grab this microphone, say a little something." And once I went on that first shopping trip, that's when I got that feeling of like, man, how do we do more of this? How do we get more, right? That's when I started the Reddit Scott Fishbowl contest that has brought in $15,000. And then that's when I really wanted to be more involved with it, man. So it's my favorite thing. It's an absolute blast, dude, and I'm fired up for how we're gonna grow it and make it better moving forward.
Nice. Next year, you guys have any venues in mind already? Or
So with that one, because like again, this year, as you know, with Boston, there was a little miscommunication between. But the thing with Bob Gilchrist is he's moving up within Fantasy Cares, and he's got a lot going on, and he's helping with all different things. He's going all over the place. So there's a little miscommunication between the venue guys and us, which we figured it out, But this year, we're actually Mike Fiella is going to jump in and help us with that. He and I are going to work on a venue, and we're going to focus on the three things that are most important to people. One being we want to get everybody back in the same room. So we're doing a nice like big venue, right? Like a nice big area. Number two, public transportation, right? Like we gotta have some sort of public transportation to get there because there are people. That's one thing that we had trouble with the Gillette Stadium. I would just go back there every time because it's like 10 minutes from my house. But there were some people that they have a difficult time getting there if there's not access via public transportation. And up here, the public transportation is not bad, so we're going to work on that. And then the third thing, of course, is like how do they vibe with what we're doing? Because there's definitely people out there, places out there that want to support us. Like again, I hope we can make it back to Gillette Stadium at some point because they were willing to donate. It was fun. And they were willing to donate and they were willing to, help us raise money and grow. So that's the end goal. And we've already got a lot of irons in the fire, man. So it's going to be very exciting.
Nice. Awesome. So, all right. So let's jump into some fantasy football stuff now.
Let's do it.
Ashton Genty, sprained ankle injury. What a crazy like 3-4 days it was. I seen him in high stakes draft go as high as round 10. Somebody in a NFFC primetime has a Bijan Genty combination. They took him at the back end of the second round. They didn't let him go any further. But I think that's the first one I've seen in the high stakes. He doesn't make it back in the second round. So, and then I've seen multiple drafts, 7th round, 10th round. So what are your thoughts on him going forward? How long do you think we're gonna be missing him, and how long does it take him to get back to 100%? In that time, can Mike Washington Jr. carve out a role even when Genty does return? These are all like my concerns. I want your thoughts on this, on that.
Yeah, we're still kind of waiting on the full results. You've basically gotten some rumors. Right. I'm kind of double checking to make sure anything hasn't changed. But the good news is that on the injury front, it's believed. So this is from Ian Rappaport. It's believed to be more a low ankle sprain than high ankle sprain. And the difference there is that the low ankle sprain is like the equivalent of when you say a rolled ankle. You step wrong and your foot rolls over, and it's kind of right in that ball joint there. The high ankle sprain can be insanely severe to the point where a lot of times what happens with a high ankle sprain, so that's when your entire ankle basically gets twisted in most cases, right, like this way, right? What can happen is you can have a spiral fracture of the bone there. Not like a complete break sometimes, but like what gets twisted so hard that the bone breaks to some degree. And that's when, and when there's ligament damage along with that, that's when you have to have the tightrope surgery if you want to come back quicker, or it takes a longer recovery. And with those injuries, it's not just even that year, it lingers into the next year as well. That's what happened with Tony Pollard, for instance, Darnell Mooney. Those injuries can be brutal. So we did avoid that, which is great. With the running back position, I do something in the Fantasy Alarm Draft Guide called the running back questionnaire, which I basically divide the job up into 5 roles: first down, third down, goal line, 2-minute drill, which is different than third down because, this is rookies really struggle getting in on 2-minute drill because you have to know all the audibles. You have to know all the plays. You can't come out of the game, right? Because they're just going too quickly. So that's a totally separate thing from third down. And then late lead, right? Like when the Bills are up late, they bring in Ray Davis. Some teams, when the Ravens are up late, they leave in Derrick Henry. So I split it all up that way. To be honest, with what the Raiders do, I think Ashton Genty is the best at every one of those things. And Mike Washington is really just a great, speedy change of pace back. So I'm not sure that Mike Washington is going to be able to carve out any one of those individual roles, Joe. Like in any instance, because again, you look at a team like the Ravens. It's obvious that Derrick Henry's the best bruiser back, the best goal line back, but they like Justice Hill for pass downs. I don't think there's any situation where Mike Washington is better than Ashton Genty at any one of those things, right? Like last year, Zach Charbonnet, he was better at running straight ahead. So when it's a obvious 3rd and 1 and the Seahawks aren't going to do their typical zone blocking, they're actually going to go man on man and try and like carve out a hole. Charbonnet was better at that thing. So for me, Genty still, as long as he's relatively healthy, should be a pretty good fantasy pick because I really do think they're going to lean more on him and then use Washington as change of pace. But again, with these brand new coaches coming in and one of the guys is a rookie, you never know exactly how it's going to shake up. So there's always going to be inherent risk there.
I mean, Kubiak has done committees in the past too. So I mean, that's right. Just where I'm a little worried about it. I have some Genty. Thank God I didn't keep hammering them. I kept doing drafts because I kept getting one player off from the exact build that I really wanted to go for, and not that they were bad builds, but I wanted to get what I was officially trying to get, and I finally did.
What were you trying to get?
A good 2 RB start with Genty.
Okay, yeah. Because I do that sometimes. It's hard. Like I was trying for weeks to get a team where I got CeeDee Lamb in the 1st round and George Pickens in the 3rd round, and it is frustrating when you're trying to It's like, how far do I move Lamb up so I can get right? It's like this way. How far do I move Lamb up where it's not ruining my team, but it's giving me a better shot at getting Pickens on the way back? And it can be frustrating trying to get the exact builds you want in some of these big tournaments. So I totally get it.
Yeah, like I would have been like I was trying to get something that really popped, like a Genty Walker or a Genty Chase Brown, Genty James Cook, something like that. And I kept having to take Drake London or AJ Brown or in that second round because the running backs went. It was just the flow of the draft of it. But then I want to say I ended up with Genty and ETN. And I got him. I don't know if you would pronounce it. He's forever ETN for me, so I don't think I'll ever change the pronunciation there. I'm not professional enough, Coop.
It's tough, dude. It's tough. I catch myself all the time with that. I mean, we've seen that happen in sports a few times, and it's like there was a hockey player. I'm not sure if you remember. He played for the New Jersey Devils for like I want to say 7 years, and in New Jersey. He went by the name Zach Parise. Yeah. And I just called him Zach Parise. I really liked the player for a long time. And then when he moved to Minnesota, he was like, oh, by the way, it's Parise. And that's one player where I still, to this day, he's just Zach Parise for me. I just can't change it, dude. There's no way. It's not happening.
Yeah. I can hear I forget the guy's name. He's retired now. Calling the hockey game, saying his name.
Parise, exactly. It's like, and New Jersey is like Parise, right? And then once he left, he's like, by the way, I just let those guys in Jersey call me that. Like, that's not even my real name. So I don't know. Just advice to everybody out there: whatever you want to be called, get that established early.
Yeah. But anyways, I got him in the 5th, and I thought, and I said, oh, okay. I think this is. I'm happy with this. This works because I still got to land my 3 good wide receivers, and it turned out pretty good the rest of the build. So I was like, all right, now I'll back off on Genty. I think I'm satisfied. So
with the Kamara injury, I mean, hey, that's that could work out nice.
But all right, so I saw you. I went through your recent post and I saw you post something about Rashee Rice being pulled off the books for the total receptions. It was set at 99.5, and the under odds were minus 4,900, which is crazy, and in the over plus 156. I wanted your actual thoughts on that.
Yeah, so the reason that those particular odds, basically what happened is I track the I do keep an eye on the prop bet market. Now, again, this isn't something that you can just say, oh, the books like this guy, let's move him up in the fantasy rankings, because these are 2 different markets, right?
Right.
Like, money's coming in. Those lines get moved by money coming in. Like, if you and me and all our buddies were to go and bet on Drake May overs and bet a ton of money on it, they would just move those lines up because they want it to be in the middle, right? So it really isn't. They come out with their own projections to set the lines, but the market moves them, right? And same goes with ADP. When we draft guys, they move up and down. What I like doing is I kind of take those numbers and I translate them to fantasy points, because we have lines these days for receptions, yards, and touchdowns. And I look and I say, okay, according to Vegas, this guy's the wide receiver 10. According to ADP, this guy's the wide receiver 10. Everything checks out. When there's a huge difference, well, we can create leverage. You still have to pick what bet you want to make. You still have to say, okay, I like this guy, so I'm going to bet the over on his props, or I like this guy and his ADP's low, so I'm going to draft him here, or I don't like this guy, I'm going to bet the unders, or I don't like this guy, I'm going to fade him in ADP. But I try to track all that. Now, when you're looking at those things, one thing that comes up all the time is when guys have these injury scares, the books will or will not take them down. For instance, Alec Pierce, all his props have been removed. Ashton Genty's props came down and then they went back up. So when you have these situations, the books will react, and it can be pretty telling. So yesterday I was going through and I noticed there were a bunch of sports books, DK, DraftKings, BetMGM, all these places that had the over under receptions line, total receptions set for Rashee Rice at 999. And this was for the last 2 weeks or so, 2+ weeks. And then all of a sudden they just came down. And I still actually don't know why they came down. I've talked to a few people adjacent to the industry, basically saying that it could be everybody uses the same providers for their projections, and the projections, are changing, and they don't want to have odds up there, so they take them down. They're going to put them back up. But he's one of the few guys that oddly came down. And the one place that has odds up for him that you mentioned there, where it's minus 4,900 to bet the under, that's Kalshi. That's a prediction market. So basically, what they're saying is go ahead and bet the over if you want, but they set the juice on the under so low. So I don't know what's going on there. It could be related to Andy Reid being non-committal about Patrick Mahomes starting for week 1. I think that might be the case, but I'm just keeping an eye on Rashee Rice to see if there's any news or anything coming out, because when they pull those odds from the books, it can be a little scary because usually they want to leave them up. They don't make money when they're down.
So you're not like you don't think it has anything to do with any type of discipline, or maybe like something new is going to come out, or that's speculating, of course, but
that's the immediate thought, right? Is like, why are they taking the odds down on this player? So for me, I do like that kind of stuff could still be on the table, but the thing is, the odds came down yesterday, and we haven't heard anything today. This industry is so leaky with stuff. Like if something happened where every sports book took it down and then we didn't get information within the next couple hours, I'm guessing that, and again, maybe it'll happen, but I'm guessing that nothing really has happened here, and that maybe it is just related to Andy Reid saying, essentially saying that we don't know if Patrick Mahomes is going to start week 1. Because if you really think about it, Justin Fields is the backup. And if you go and look at last year for Justin Fields, he had 3 different games where he played the whole game and completed 6 or fewer passes, right? Like, quick throws are not his specialty. Quick, accurate throws, and that's Rashee Rice's specialty. Slants, screens, like, he's a volume-based player. So if you have a quarterback going in there, Justin Fields had a game against the Bills last year. He played the entire game. He completed 3 passes. So, like, if you have that guy going in to play quarterback where you're leaning more on his rushing, he's not going to be high volume throwing. If it's even one game, now Rashee Rice might not catch 100 passes where the line was set. So my guess is that it's actually related to that, but just keep an eye on him.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So one of my favorite things about your content, listening to you on different shows, Coop, is how you talk about the game of football itself. You have a deep understanding for the way everything works, from formations to positions. I know you played in high school. You were a quarterback, so you definitely have and you're a really sharp dude when it comes to football, fantasy football in general. So I want to have you discuss a couple of formations and like what positions benefit from certain formations and why that is, and kind of, give examples if you want, and so the audience really gets it. Because I think when I first listened to you explain all this stuff, I understood it, but I didn't like translate it to fantasy football, like how much of an impact it actually has when you can use this information, this knowledge of understand, like it helps you kind of predict how an offense might run when it's an ambiguous situation or a new look offense like the Saints, and different players are in who's going to get the roles. You mentioned your running back chart with the 5 different roles. I've seen that before. That's awesome as well, because it really, really gives somebody looking at that an idea of just exactly where they could be as far as snap shares and touches go. So go ahead. I'll let you take it from here.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah, and the big thing with understanding the formations and the usage and how that can help us in fantasy football that I think is lost on a lot of people is thinking about capabilities for players, right? And everybody does it at quarterback. Everybody understands it at quarterback because it's so obvious, right? With quarterbacks, you have some guys that are capable of rushing and other guys that are not, right? Like Jared Goff does not run ever, but hardly even does QB sneaks. But then you have Justin Fields, who I mentioned, who primarily runs, but he's not exactly capable of throwing. Within the other positions, there's all sorts of things like that we don't account for. And there's all sorts of different roles within the positions that we don't really discuss nearly enough. Like a lot of people just think a running back's a running back. He's going to go in there and just do his thing, or they think a wide receiver is a wide receiver. This, you got a group of wide receivers. He's your wide receiver one. He's your wide receiver two. He's your wide receiver three. And it doesn't always work like that. In the actual game itself, there's multiple, probably realistically, four different wide receiver roles. You have a split end who is your X wide receiver. You have to have 11 guys on the line every play. 7 guys on the line every play. 11 guys on the field, 7 on the line. That means that they have to be tethered up on the line with their foot there. When you are that tethered wide receiver, you're right up on the line. You can't go in motion unless you step back and somebody else steps forward. You have some defender right in your face, ready to jam you. That is a very difficult role. That's why we talk about the split end, the X receiver. Some people call it X. I'm old school. We called it the split end when I played. Those are usually bigger bodied players, right? Then you have the flanker, which is the wide receiver opposite him. With the tethered players that are up on the line, you can whoever the widest player is that's tethered on the line is eligible to catch passes. The other guy has to be a step back. So if you have a tight end on the line, the flanker has to be a step back. So that's to me, that's a different role. It's a different job than what the split end's doing. Then you have slot guys in between that are playing closer in between the hashes, closer to the line. And then the other role to me is a field stretcher, basically just a guy that you put out there that's a speedster, that's getting behind people, guys like Deshaun Jackson, Tutu Atwell, those type players. So what type of players you have on the team dictates what kind of personnel and formations you can use. And for fantasy football, that really does change the outcomes. So, for instance, for instance, the more guys you have on the field, and this is a huge advantage that you can get for. I can talk about this for like an hour. So let me just give you folks like an example of how we can use this to our advantage, right? The more guys you have on the field that aren't pass catchers, the better it is for the guys who are, right? Obviously, you're going to have 5 linemen, you're going to have a quarterback, but after that, the other 5 guys could be any combination of players, right? And what some of these schemes do, noticeably, Kyle Shanahan with the 49ers and his offshoot, is they love having guys on the field that do the things that we don't think about for fantasy football. They love blocking tight ends. They love fullbacks, right? And then, Mike McDaniel brought that to Miami. Now he's bringing it to Los Angeles. Clint Kubiak, who was with the 49ers in 2023, he uses that scheme. Bobby Slowick, who was with the 49ers, then he went to the Texans. Now he's going to be the OC for the Dolphins. He uses that scheme. So when you have these guys on the field that don't get targets, it highly consolidates the snaps and the targets among the other guys. For instance, with the Dolphins last year, Julian Hill, the blocking tight end, and Alec Ingold, the fullback, they combined for 800 snaps. 800. That is a ton of snaps. And the two of them only combined for 30 touches between them. A couple carries for Alec Ingold and then a couple, 15 or so targets for each of those guys. When you have those guys on the field, when you bring in that fullback, who comes out of the game? A wide receiver comes out. When you bring in another tight end, maybe the other tight end comes out or maybe another wide receiver comes out. You can have one wide receiver sets a lot of times with these teams. And that really consolidates the targets and helps us in fantasy because there's less guessing work when there's, 2 wide receivers and a running back and a tight end versus 3 wide receivers, right? So when I look around at teams like the Chargers, the 49ers, the Dolphins, you'll notice those teams never have a meaningful wide receiver 3 because they're not even on the field. And those are the type of things, formation and personnel-wise, that can help get us an advantage. They can also help us identify which wide receivers can potentially break out when somebody gets hurt. Like Juwan Jennings over many years now, when everyone was healthy with the 49ers, he wasn't great. When Brandon Ayuk or Deebo Samuel got hurt, though, he jumped up into one of those top 2 roles, and he was great. So I actually have an article that just went up today on Fantasy Alarm talking about contingent upside and a couple players where, hey, you know what? If things break right injury-wise, these guys can be catapulted into massive roles based on the schemes and the formations these teams use. To me, that is kind of one of the last few stones to unturn in terms of finding breakouts, because everybody has the metrics, but We had 21 different play callers this year. If you can figure out what these play callers and new coaches are going to do before they do it and how those formations work out, then you can figure out the last piece of the equation that I think a lot of people are missing.
Nice. Excellent. Great breakdown, Coop.
Cheers,
so you touched on a lot of that stuff. All right. Good. Yeah, I wanted to share that with the audience because, like I said, when the more I listened to you, the more you talked about this, the more it made me realize how to translate it to fantasy. And then I started working on a process like similar, on my own. With the more you start studying these, you deep dive in these type of situations and you learn and everything, the better you get at it. And I've noticed a lot of good results in kind of, trying to develop guys I'm not interested in drafting and compared to ADP, and guys that like you said, just scream value in drafts. They're the cheapest they've ever been, and they're not, they're still capable of producing their ceiling, and situations haven't changed. You weigh in. It's a very important factor to weigh in. So it's really I appreciate it. But,
yeah, cheers, brother. It's one of those things where it's like, one of the things that's lost, and this happens in the Dynasty community is a lot, is that you get into talking about talent, right? And like who you think is going to be a talented breakout player, but opportunity matters just as much. The three,
right.
And again, there's an article in the draft guide I wrote about identifying breakout players. The three things that matter to me are the convergence of talent, scheme, and opportunity. Is the player talented? Does the scheme translate to what they do? Do they actually even have the chance to have that role in the scheme? Because I mean, we've seen it time and time again with guys like Jackson Smith and Jigba and Chris Godwin and CeeDee Lamb. When they were rookies, the talent was there, right? They were first round picks. Chris Godwin was a second round pick, but the other ones were first round picks. The scheme was good, especially on the Cowboys pass heavy team, heavy wide receiver usage, but the opportunity wasn't there. CeeDee Lamb was a part-time player as a rookie, ran 94% of his routes from the slot because they had Amari Cooper and they had Michael Gallup. But you look at those situations and a lot of people right away said, oh, maybe this guy's not that good. But then you realize he could be talented. The scheme is great, and all he needs is the opportunity. The moment they moved on from Amari Cooper and he was able to become a full-time wide receiver, we all saw what happened. So we look around and try and find those guys before it happens so we can get them in Dynasty. And hopefully when everything hits right and all three things come together, that's when it blows up. But the game would be a lot easier if it was just a matter of sitting back and saying, I think this guy's pretty good. Because even good players don't always get the chance that we hope. I mean, Trey McBride was stuck behind Zach Ertz. Trey McBride was a big nothing for 1 year and 7 games because he didn't have the opportunity, and that's just how it goes.
Nice. And speaking of guys entering a new opportunity, I want to hit on Kayshon Boutte, our guy, Patriots guy, being traded to Houston to fill the Jaden Higgins void. First of all, we got Jalen Reed, safety, and a 7th round future 7th, right? What are your thoughts on the trade, and how do you project Boutte in Houston?
Yeah, I mean, in this particular instance, it could potentially be a win-win trade for both teams because they have done so well drafting in the secondary. Like the Texans have arguably the best defense in the entire league. Again, you can I'm not going to sit here. That argument, that comment always opens up arguments because everybody has their own opinions. And, whether the Rams got Myles Garrett, what I mean? It's like, yeah, okay, fine. Like when I say the Texans could be the best defense in the league, there's like 5 teams that could be the best defense in the league. You never really know until we get it going. But they have just done such a good job at, finding guys in the secondary that they had an abundance of talent there. And, this guy, Jalen Reed, was great at Penn State, key cog in their organization. So for them, they had an abundance of talent. And then the Patriots, because they went out and got Romeo Doubs, right, as kind of an insurance insurance policy, in my opinion, in case the AJ Brown trade didn't go through, because you never know with those things. And then the trade did go through, and they ended up having going from a team that was weak at wide receiver to a team that's very strong. So they had this guy who was balling out, who they drafted him for what, a 6th-round pick. So just being able to get a player back, a meaningful player that gives the Patriots depth at a position where needed is great. And for Keisha Butte, if you're a fantasy player, nothing better than him going to a spot where he's actually going to get an opportunity, because he was kind of on the outside looking in with this team with all the moves that they made. So I think it's great. Also, you're hearing from, I know that we're all rooting for him coming back, but we're hearing that Tank Dell isn't actually close to being cleared for week 1. I thought that it was a possibility, but it's really starting to sound like that's not going to be the case, right? And then you've got Nico Collins on the outside. You've got Jalen Noel, who is more of a pure slot guy. He's more of a replacement for Christian Kirk. In fact, we know what we have the benefit of knowing what Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins were going to be, because they played together in college. They were on the same team on Iowa State. I don't know what it is with Iowa State and the Texans, because Xavier Hutchinson also went to Iowa State. They must have some scout over there that just loves those guys. So, but anyway, we know what these guys are, and they need a presence on the outside, which Jaden Higgins was going to be basically, with Nico Collins being your split end. Jaden Higgins was going to be your flanker, and then Tank Dell can obviously be a speedy flanker out there, but Keisha Butte is perfect for that. That's exactly the kind of thing that he does. He stretches the field, he gets behind people, he makes those chunk plays. So I think it's a great spot for him. As far as a best ball pick, I think that's the exact kind of player that translates to best ball, because who knows how consistent he's going to be showing up late and being that type of role. But if you catch one 50-yard touchdown, that cracks lineups and best balls, and you don't have to click, you don't have to start the guy. You don't have to click the button. So I think as far as landing spot, either the Saints or the Texans was the best spot for Keisha Butte, and they did it.
Nice. I agree with the best ball take too. I must have so many 18th round shares of him in drafters from since March, April, February. I don't know when those drafts started. The early contests, the ones that they have in May after the draft.
I love the ones in March are fun, because I use those to just bet on the prospects that I like coming in. Like once the draft comes and everyone gets their landing spot, then we scheme an opportunity come into play, and you got to actually be like, how's this guy going to get on the field, right? Like, some of these guys, like the tight end, the Patriots drafted Eli Raridan. Now his path to playing is a little tougher, right? But before the draft, you don't have to worry about any of that. It really is a lot more fun to draft prospects before the draft, because you can say to yourself, what if this guy goes in the 2nd round and he goes to the Jets, where he can be the starting tight end right away, or the pass catching tight end right away? Like, and then of course the draft comes and dashes all those hopes. But it is a lot of fun to do those drafts. I love that they close right when the draft starts, so you're only drafting against people with the same info as you.
Yeah, it is. It is. Those are some fun drafts for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to jump into your tight end strategy. Have you explain yin and yang a little bit? Not that I'm pretty sure everybody already has a good idea what it is, but for anybody that doesn't, this is genius tight end strategy. Great drafting approach. If you prefer to not use a premium pick on an elite tight end, and maybe find the 1 or 2 tight ends that hit a little bit further on in the draft, they always present themselves every year. Coop developed a good system on how to figure it out. So why don't you explain to us there?
Yeah. So for a long time, people basically said you should never draft 2 tight ends, right? And in the early years of fantasy, that strategy definitely worked, because early on in fantasy, back when I started playing, you didn't have these like deep leagues with lots of flex spots and a lot of bench spots. Really, like when I first started playing, I remember our benches were shallow, right? It was like you started 1 quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, a tight end. Maybe there was a flex, but maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. You're right.
Flex was like new, yeah. Maybe, and then you had like 4 bench spots or whatever, and it was like You just drafted your quarterback, your tight end, your defense, and then you needed to have a handcuff for your back then. You needed to have the handcuff for your running back, right? You draft Priest Holmes, you have to have Larry Johnson. Like your bench was kind of built a certain way no matter what, and they told you never draft 2 tight ends. But in the modern era, we've got all these new formats that are a lot crazier and a lot deeper, and we found that you can create a lot of leverage drafting 2. Now, the easiest way to explain the strategy is first explaining what it's not. And this is where people look at it and they are so stubborn because they don't understand what it is. We're not drafting 2 tight ends to rotate the tight ends and play matchups. That's
Right.
not what you're doing. You don't want to have 2 tight ends where you're playing matchups. And people think that right away and they're like, oh, I don't want to have that headache. Neither do I. Nobody wants to have that headache. You don't want 2 similar, boring tight ends that you're playing matchups. You also don't got to get it out of your mind, this mindset of this is my starter and this is my backup. That's not what you're doing when you're drafting 2 tight ends in fantasy football. Unless it's a very deep league where everybody's drafting backups and the wire is like completely barren come bye weeks, you don't need a backup tight end. If we're drafting an elite tight end, like if I draft Brock Bowers, I'm not drafting a second tight end. That's my tight end. I've invested in this player. So with yin and yang tight end, I have a chart, right? And the first 7 or 8 players I consider elite tight ends. If you take them, don't take a second one. When you get to out of that range of guys that you can trust every single week, we need access to upside. The problem you run into is that a lot of these guys are super risky and you can't start them right away. And, it's funny that we do this with other positions. Like at running back, we'll say all the time, oh, this guy, I don't like him as my RB2, but I like having him on the bench or as my RB3. Well, we're fine doing that at running back to get access to upside, but at tight end, we're not. For me, we look around and you've got all these guys that are super risky, like Mark Andrews when he was a rookie, Darren Waller with the, a complete kind of unknown guy that was getting some hype. Even guys like Colston Loveland and these guys last year, like you want access to the upside, but you can't start them. So we use yin and yang tight end. Your yin tight end is a safe guy that you can actually start early on. So you wait in your draft and you start that and you draft a safe guy that you can actually start and trust early on. And then your second tight end is a yang tight end. This is a high risk, high reward. We don't care about floor at all because he's on our bench. We're just trying to find this year's breakout. And you draft that guy second, you put him on your bench. If he breaks out, great. If he doesn't, then we drop him and add the next high risk, high reward guy. And we just keep churning that bench spot until we hit upside. And then when we hit the breakout, that becomes our tight end, and we can take the other guy and drop him or trade him or do whatever. A good example for this year of one that I'm doing, definitely get the Fantasy Line draft guide that breaks down everything. You can use promo code COOP right now. COOP25 and get the All Pro for 25% off. It gives all this information, and it gives you the draft guide and access to all of our tools. But one example would be this. Let's say I wait in the draft and 9 tight ends go off the board already. I've already drafted probably for my team 9 running backs and wide receivers. So I don't need to have a bench full of wide receivers, right? I go out and I take Travis Kelce. He's got a good floor. He's going like tight end 9, 10, 11. But the upside maybe is not super appealing. I can start him week 1. I can trust him. He's got good matchups early on. He plays the Dolphins, a couple of these teams. But he also has a week 5 bye week. I'm going to need the first bye week of any team. I'm going to need another tight end on my team by week 5. So I have to add another tight end at some point within the first month of the season anyway. So with a bench spot, I go out and I add the highest risk, highest reward guy that has a path to upside. Maybe I add a guy like Greg Dulcich. And who knows what his role is going to be, but the scheme is good for him. The scheme is good if he gets that top pass catching role. The opportunity is good because they don't have really good wide receivers. And then the question mark is the talent. But what if him and Malik Willis have a connection, right? And I have that guy on my bench. If he plays a ton week 1 and gets a few targets, we keep him. If he doesn't, we look around at the usage and we add the next guy. And we've used that strategy to create a crazy amount of leverage because every year for the last 15 straight years, a tight end's come from outside the top 15 in ADP to finish top 5. Whether it's Mark Andrews or Darren Waller or Harold Fannin last year or Jonnu Smith or Dalton Schultz, going all the way back to Heath Miller. So that's a strategy we use to create leverage because you can get great players at every other position. And then if you circle back and hit on the tight end, now you have no bad spots. So that's the rundown, my man. It's worked really well for us in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely in my opinion, the better way. I mean, I still think there's times to click that elite tight end
For sure.
But once the draft takes you a certain direction, and it's just the way you adapted to it, and sometimes tight end becomes a punt, and you take that approach. So I absolutely love it.
The ideal strategy is one of the elite tight ends that you really like falls behind ADP and you get a good value on. That is still, people ask me, they're like, oh yeah, I'm just doing yin and yang tight end. I'm like, I don't commit to yin and yang tight end until I have to. It's like zero RB. I don't use it unless I have to. If Kyle Pitts falls like 2 picks behind ADP and I can get him there, then I just do that. If for some reason nobody's drafting Trey McBride and he falls to the 4th round, I'll just do that. Like, then my problems are solved. I'm getting the value. I'm getting good value, and I'm getting an elite guy. It's when you don't get those guys. That way you don't have to reach for a guy you don't want. You don't have to force yourself to draft somebody you don't want to draft. You keep that strategy in your back pocket in case things don't go your way with the elite guys. And that's what I do at every position is you learn all the strategies. I learn all the targets, and I practice drafts for 0 RB, hero RB, robust RB, late round quarterback, yin and yang tight end. If you know every strategy, then those are all tools in your toolbox. And early on in the draft, just take the guys when they fall to you and then say to yourself, as the draft is going, we've all been there. You say to yourself, wow, it's round 8. I have 1 running back. Time for me to dig into my hero RB mentality and start putting players for that strategy in the queue and start building my bench with a hero RB bench. I'll do the same thing with yin and yang tight end. If I get to round 8 or so, I'm like, oh, I don't have a tight end. We're going to go yin and yang tight end here. I'm going to take somebody I can start week 1. And then here are my list of targets that I think can blow up. And I'm going to throw 1, maybe depending on how big the benches are, maybe even 2 on the bench. And we'll just patch up tight end afterwards. Same mentality as 0 RB.
Right.
Use those strategies to paper over the leverage. And I know, Joe, you've been doing a lot of housework, so sometimes you just gotta paper over things, a little spackle over things, right?
Yeah, a lot of scrubbing, a lot of cleaning. I did some did some weed whacking this morning in the front side yard there.
Yeah, that's dropping guys to waivers right there. The weed whacking when all those breakout guys that play 4 snaps week 1. That's sometimes you got to do some weed whacking.
Nice. All right. So there's a couple of tight ends in tight end situations I want to get your opinion on. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say I don't know what to make of them, but it could go. It's kind of ambiguous, and I want to see if you can shed light on it at all. So the Chargers tight end room, they, Gadsden flashed last year. They go out and they get Njoku, and then they sign Charlie Cola and give him a significant contract too. So we got 3 tight ends in the building. They still have Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston there, and Amarian Hampton is pretty good as well. And then they also sprinkled in a Keaton Mitchell. So there's a lot of players in this offense. I think that they're set up for success. I think they could do a lot of special things if the offensive line stays healthy, which we know that hasn't even happened yet. They lost their center, but the ceiling is, the sky is the limit for this offense. So, but where do the 3 tight ends fall? Are you targeting anybody, or does anybody, is anyone going to be a consistent fantasy option here, or is this just an avoid all situation?
Yeah, you got to build the bull case and the bear case for every player, right? So the bull case for this team is that we saw Mike McDaniel the last 2 years in a row use a tight end to run 70% of his routes from a wide receiver spot, right? Jonnu Smith and Darren Waller were basically big wide receivers. And that's key because this team does use the fullback and they use the blocking tight ends, right? They brought in Alec Ingold. They brought in Charlie Kohler, who historically has been a blocking tight end, right? So the bull case is that one of those guys gets that role and they run with it, right? And then they could be this year's Jonnu Smith or Darren Waller. The bear case is that if these guys all rotate, right? Like there's 32 teams in the NFL, and at most there's probably what, Joe, 10 to 15 fantasy relevant tight ends. I mean, outside tight end premium, how many tight ends in any given year can we really trust week to week? I mean,
Right.
if you really think about it, the tight ends 9 and 10 last year were guys like Hunter Henry and Dalton Schultz. Are those guys you trust, Joe? You know, there might be 8 guys. So most teams are, no matter how you slice it, right? I said 15 at max. That means 17 teams have a tight end that we don't trust. We forget so much about how, like, we could be looking at a room where, like, one of these guys is the big breakout. We could be looking at a world where, like, Charlie Kohler is Drew Sample and David Njoku is Mike Gesicki and Oronde Gadsden is Tanner Hudson, which is the tight end room for the Bengals, and we're not interested in that tight end room. So that's the situation there, is that, like, for me, the way I think it shakes out is I think Charlie Kohler is your inline, essentially skewing blocking tight end, the way that Julian Hill was, the way that Foster Moreau has been in this scheme, the way that Charlie Warner has been in this scheme, Luke Farrell currently for the 49ers. The upside case for him is that he's like an AJ Barner type, where he is playing a lot of inline. He is blocking a ton, but he still is also sneaking out and catching touchdowns. There's just not enough upside there for me to take a stab on that. The other two guys are Njoku and Gadsden, where it's like, I have a hard time at this stage, given his preseason usage, picturing a world where Gadsden has just been this secret weapon that they're just not utilizing in these joint practices, and they're just kind of keeping him on ice. I think that what really happened here is he's a 5th round pick, and they looked at their team and they said, yeah, that was nice last year, but this is a position of weakness for us, and we're going to try and fill it with other players, and they brought in Njoku. At the end of the day, if this team was like the Dolphins and their wide receivers were Malik Washington and Tutu Atwell and those guys, I would be more willing to bet on these tight ends. But because they have Lad McConkey and Quentin Johnston, we might be in a world where these guys are fighting to be the 3rd target on the team, and most tight ends who are 3rd targets on the team don't really have upside anyway. So for me right now, I'm kind of just staying away from the whole thing. But with the information I just gave, people can place their own bets because now they know what they're betting on. And people might have listened and said, you know what? I actually don't like Quentin Johnston. And I think David Njoku still does have it. And I think he's going to be the guy, right? Or they think Oronde Gadsden's going to be the guy. You know what? I have no problem with placing those bets. Just know what you're betting on. And that way, week 1, we'll know if we're seeing it or not.
Right.
Because that's the big thing with the guys like this, is that where they go in ADP, super underrated part of fantasy is knowing who you can drop and who you can't. Those bench spots are so valuable, right, Joe? Like the breakouts, and like you got to add, especially in deep leagues, if you're not adding the breakout players week 1 or week 2, you might never have a shot. Last year,
you gotta have one bench spot, at least one bench spot that you use to recycle.
That you're ready to churn,
possible
man.
yeah.
And knowing what you're looking for is one of the most underrated. It's the greatest skill in fantasy, is knowing what you're looking for in terms of the usage and the metrics, so that after 1 week you can make the decision, I'm going to keep this guy or I'm going to drop this guy, because keeping or dropping the wrong guy can change your entire future. Same with adding the right guy, you know. And in some of these leagues, I'll tell you, last year, Joe, I had a deep league where, you know, and for 3 years now, there's been nothing on the wire. And if the Kings Classic, if you don't add the right guy in the early weeks, you're just not going to come up with anything. 14 team leagues with, like, you know, do any of these FFPC leagues too. 20 round draft. There's 20 spots. You're just not going to add guys. Like, maybe a Michael Wilson might come out of the woodwork like last year, but that just doesn't really happen. So, like, you got to be ready to drop these guys immediately. So that's my advice with guys like Njoku, Gadsden, Kohler. These are guys that if they don't get the usage week 1, drop them. There are other guys like, say, Kenyon Sadiq, where you got to play the long game. You got to dedicate a bench spot to that player, because last year we saw it with Harold Fannin. Everybody got hurt like week 5, so he got his role pretty quickly. But Colston Loveland is an example of a guy, he's a rookie, and you were stashing him and you were waiting for him to play more. You got to figure out if these guys are guys that you're stashing, or if this is a guy that you're trying to get a quick look and drop. And that can make all the difference for you in your leagues, especially with shallow benches.
Nice. I like that. Great advice on how to manage the bench spots with your tight ends, deep leagues and shallow leagues as well.
Bench management, man, like that's something that it's really hard to articulate in an article. I've tried to figure it out. Like that's why shows like these are important because it's like what I just explained would probably take me 3,000 words and 10 pictures to try and explain. You know what I mean? It's a difficult concept, but once you grasp it, you're going to end up with fewer roster cloggers on your bench and more movement. Your point there is one that people should always keep in the back of your mind. At least one of your bench spots should be dedicated to a player that you can drop at any moment and be comfortable with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So another tight end this is a tight end I've been personally fading. I had him last year and I don't know. I just don't like the situation. Also big on one of the wide receivers taking a step forward in that offense. I'm talking about tight end Sam Laporta. He's coming off a major injury as well. I'm not really, I don't know. I'm fading him. Am I making a bad decision here, or what's your thoughts?
No, I'm with you on this one. And this is how it works with me. The juice has to be worth the squeeze, right? If this were a situation where, let's say today, and again, please, if this actually happens, do not clip this. But look, let's say hypothetically today, Amon-Ra St. Brown were to get hurt and he would be done for the season. Now on this team, you would have Jameson Williams versus Isaac Tesla versus Sam Laporta versus Jahmyr Gibbs to be the top targets on this team. Historically speaking, virtually every top 5 tight end has been a top 2 target on their team. The time and realistically, the number of teams that have had 3 players all get 100 plus targets is very low. The odds of that happening is like 3.5%, which is about the odds of hitting a single number on a roulette table. If you don't know those odds, go ask your uncle whether that's a good bet or not. Right? It is not. And just last year, for instance, one team did it. It was the Cowboys, and Jake Ferguson would not have gotten there unless CeeDee Lamb missed 5 games. Jake Ferguson in points per game was the tight end 20 in games when everyone was healthy. In points per game in the 5 games without Lamb, he was the tight end 2. Right. So, like, if that were the case, then I could bet on Sam Laporta because I think Sam Laporta has an opportunity to be a top 2 target on his team outright. Right. Like, he could lead that team in targets because it's close between him and Jameson Williams over the last couple of years. The problem I run into now is that with Laporta there, it's a battle between JMO and Jahmyr Gibbs and Laporta to be second. And Jahmyr Gibbs got 94 targets last year. So, like, he was on pace to have more targets than Sam Laporta was. Like,
Right.
so when you have this guy coming off a back injury, now he has this hip issue. For me, the juice isn't worth the squeeze because the upside is for him to essentially be kind of battling to be the second target, but probably third or fourth. So it's not enough upside there given the injury risk for me personally. Right. So that's the game, man. Like if Trey McBride had a hip injury and he might be out, might not be out, in that case, I just say, you know what? The upside is so great that I would just do the bet anyway. With this one, Sam Laporta might be hurt. He also might be super inconsistent just because they have all these other pass catchers. So I just can't make that bet where he's going, man. It's just he's too expensive to do yin and yang tight end with him, and he's too expensive. And he's too expensive because you would have to make him your yang tight end. You would have to circle back and take a safe tight end, and that's just not enough upside to have 2 safe tight ends where one is kind of hurt. It's just not the play I make.
Right. Yeah, I agree. He's in that so-called middle area tight end range that usually you want to avoid.
Right. Like you look at everybody else there.
The ADPs. Yeah.
You look at everybody else there. Tucker Kraft. I'll ask you, right? And you say where you think they fall in the pecking order. 1, 2, 3, or 4 in terms of who's going to get the most targets, per game from these teams. Tucker Kraft, where do you think he falls among Jaden Reed and Christian Watson, these guys?
I think he's definitely at least second, and he could probably contend for first.
Right. Kyle Pitts.
Second for sure. I'm huge on Kyle Pitts this year. He's probably my most owned player by far.
Right. You got Drake London's one, but then like John Dotson, Bijan, like his biggest threat to get more targets than him is probably Bijan Robinson. And when you look at the examples of teams that had 3 guys all get 100 targets, a lot of them were teams that had the running back. One year it was Odell Beckham Jr., Darius Slayton, and Saquon Barkley. One year it was, and this is the other problem with the 3 guys getting 100 targets, Joe, is that it's not always the teams you think. Right? Like in our minds, we're like, oh yeah, it'll be the Bears. One year, here were the 3 guys that all got 100 targets on one of the few teams. This is the only team in the league that this year that did that. The year that happened, this is the only team that did it. One year, the Washington at the time, or I think they were Commanders at the time, or they might have been the Washington football team. The 3 targets were Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas, and J.D. McKissick. Right? It's like doesn't really happen. What about Harold Fannin? Where do you think he falls?
As far as in
1, 2nd, 3rd, the guy. No, in terms of 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, or 4th target on his team.
I think I think he absolutely can finish 2nd.
Yeah, George Kittle.
Yeah. Probably 1st. I think he's 1st. But when he's on the field and healthy, he's 1st. I would say.
Travis Kelce.
He's 2nd.
Mark Andrews.
Probably 2nd because until Jacoby Lane puts together a breakout.
Right. So when you put together a list of players that could all either be 1st or 2nd on their team, and the reason 2nd is so important, the reason I'm fine with 2nd on the team is that the best fantasy tight end season of all time came from a guy who was 2nd on his team. Do you know who it is, Joe?
Gronkowski.
Rob Gronkowski. 330 PPR points in a year where Wes Welker scored 100. Wes Welker had 173 targets that year, but Gronk was the 2nd target on the team, and he caught 18 touchdowns, which helps. But like any more time you're there. So when I ask people, I'm like, Sam Laporta, who gets more targets? Because Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to get 150. So Sam Laporta or Jameson Williams, who gets more targets? The moment anyone says Jameson Williams, or even says, I don't know, you probably shouldn't be drafting Sam Laporta.
That's what I'm saying. I think J-Mo is going to have a huge year this year. I think they need to. Right. They're so much of a better team or offense all around when he's more involved, and they kind of took a steal. They didn't even make the playoffs. I just definitely see it for sure. J-Mo's taking a step forward, even if it's not a big one. It's still enough to knock Sam Laporta, out of being able to be trusted. So nice. Yeah. All right. So other than him, who's a good tight end that you're fading?
Guys that I'm fading?
Just one guy.
I'll give you one that I never clicked this player, which is Jake Ferguson. The thing about Jake Ferguson is that, for one, we just talked about top targets on the team, right? And I don't think there's anyone out there where if I asked them to rank the Cowboys in terms of who gets the most targets, they would put Jake Ferguson ahead of either CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens. Like, nobody is straight up saying this guy's going to get more targets than George Pickens. So already right there, his upside is capped. The other thing about Jake Ferguson is that he is very slow. 4.8 240 is like at best 30th percentile for a position who has a lot of slow players. And historically speaking, I've only seen 2 tight ends finish top 5 being that slow. One was Heath Miller in 2012. The other was Jake Ferguson himself last year. But there's a reason Jake Ferguson only had 600 yards despite catching 82 passes. And again, Jake Ferguson, he was like tight end 5 in PPR, tight end 8 in half PPR, and tight end 10 in standard. Like, it was last year a PPR scam type player. The upside for Jake Ferguson is essentially a contingent upside play where he only has upside if one of the 2 guys gets hurt. So you're basically drafting a handcuff because he wasn't good. Tight end 20 in points per game in the games when CeeDee Lamb and Pickens are both healthy. So basically you're drafting this guy, starting like a boring guy as your tight end that has an okay floor but not really a great ceiling, hoping that a wide receiver gets hurt. I'm never going to draft a tight end 11 or 12 off the board with the hopes that, as a handcuff. That's, to me, is crazy.
Yeah, I think he's better off being, if the guy who drafts him gets frustrated with them and drops him, and then the injury happens, he's much more appealing as a waiver or wire addition
Exactly.
in season at that point, because now he, like you said, the injury opened up the window for him to move up in the pecking order and become more consistent. And
people are chasing conditions that aren't there. They aren't. People did this for years with Dallas Goedert too. It's like one of the wide receivers would get hurt and Dallas Goedert would have a couple good games, and then people would draft him always at like tight end 7, 8. He's never finished higher than tight end 7 ever. But like, you just draft him because you're supposed to. And will never take those type players ever.
All right. Well, this has been an excellent show. Fun time. Very, very informative. You always spit out good knowledge. Before I let you go, I got to ask you. We're both New England guys. Give us one of your favorite New England vacation spots. Somewhere you go for peace. Take the family and go for peace.
Ooh, I love that, man. There's so many good examples, dude. I gotta give.
You can do more than one. You can give us more than one.
Yeah. Because I got a whole list. I gotta compartmentalize, right? Because there's the vacation spots for me and my buddies, like Portland, Maine. That's fun or whatever. But that's not a place for peace. I'll tell you that.
No,
right?
I'm talking like the
Newport,
family.
Rhode Island. Yeah, I'll tell you one that is really fun, especially in winter, to bring the family to. Is the Berkshires. You just go and you hang out there, kind of Western Mass. But I would say number one for me right now, I do like going up to New Hampshire in the summer. We go to this place called Steel Hill Reserve, and it's like you can go over to Laconia where they got the whole boardwalk and the fried dough and bike week if you're into that type of thing. And
where's beach? We were there last week.
Where beach? Oh, you were there last week? How is it? Because this time of year it's popping, right? I mean,
it was not. We went. So I have the middle of the week off, Tuesday and Wednesday. Obviously, that's how I'm doing this date. And we did an overnight trip. We wanted to squeeze one in before the kids went back to school. They start school tomorrow, actually. And we stayed at the Nazwa Resort.
Okay.
So me and my wife got married in Meredith. Right over Lake Winnipesaukee. With the reception, like the lake was right there. That was pretty cool.
It's just beautiful up there.
That's where we go for peace. Yeah, no, it is so nice. It's great in the winter time too. Like you go to the North Conway side.
I love North Conway, man. I used to go with my family up to King Pine Ski Resort every single year in that area, and just go over to like Horse Feathers and all those places in North Conway. Yeah, that place is blessed. And then the Laconia. Did you guys go over to?
We did Fun Spot.
Spot. That's right.
Yeah, we hit up Fun Spot.
Biggest arcade in the world. If you're a nerd, they have like every old school cabinet game there is, from Q*bert to like every Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, the whole deal. Like they keep them all running, dude. It's like the mecca of also that pinball room. Do you play pinball? Pinball to me is like,
I enjoy. I play here and there. I definitely put a few tokens towards the pinball machine.
I hate having to learn all the rules though. To be good, you have to like know all the rules of the machine, and it's so to really play pinball, you got to sit down for like 5-10 minutes and learn exactly what your mission is. You know what I mean? I'm more of just, I don't know about you, I'm more just whacking the paddles,
So yeah, but my wife's in the chat. She's listening. She says I'm the jackpot master. So there's this game they have in there that, so every time someone takes a try, it goes up. It's not the spinny one. It's one where you start off. You have to stop the thing. It goes up and down. You have to stop it in between where the yellow dots are, and it starts off big for 5 tickets, and the lines that you get to stop it in shrink as you go. So it's 5 tickets, 10 tickets, 15 tickets, 30 tickets, and then the last one is just one line. You have to stop it on the one line to hit the jackpot, whatever it is. It could be 880, it could be It's whatever it is at the time. And every single time I go, I hit it like within the first 10 or 15 tries.
Wow, dude, that's sick.
Yeah.
I once
I forget what the name of the game.
I know the one you're talking about, dude.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I went to Dave and Buster's once, and in Providence, the Providence Place Mall, and I'm there with my buddy, and we're walking around, and we see this guy, and in front of him, he's got just buckets and buckets and buckets of tickets. We go up to the guy, and we're like, dude, what is your secret, man? Like, how are you hitting this thing every time? We're watching him, he's just hitting it every time. And I'm like, what's your secret? He's like, he points at his wrist. He goes like this. And I was like, what? He goes, I'm a watch repairman. So this dude was a guy that repairs watches, and he's just like so in tune with like these like mechanical devices and stuff. He's like this machine. He's like, it's just like a watch. And so is so good at he was just stopping it right on the spot. They wanted to every time. It was insane watching this guy, dude.
Pinball is the best. Yeah, they have a nice Jaws one.
They have over there, Iggy. This is how serious they take pinball over there. Yeah. They have pinball leagues, and then they have all these monitors, right? That play across the top with all the machines, and it rotates through the machines, and you can see who has the current high score for like the month, the year, and who has the total most points in their pinball league. So they like, if you want to play this is probably the pinball mecca of the world. I don't know where else people are taking pinball that seriously, where it's like a legitimate league with, and you look at the leaderboards. As I was watching the leaderboards as I scroll, a couple names were on the top 5 for every game. There are some pinball wizards over there, for lack of better, to steal the Who term there, but they're legitimate pinball like monsters over there.
That's a good tune, actually.
Jam.
Yeah. Nice. All right. So yeah, fun spot. What games that I played? I played a lot of Hit the Ice. I just kept remember that's one of my favorite ones. One I didn't see. I think they got rid of it. Was Tapper. You remember Tapper?
Tapper was there when I was there, bro.
I
know for a fact.
When did you go? When's the last time you were there?
I was there earlier this summer. So maybe they take cabinets out to work on them sometimes. But it was 100% there, because I remember I was looking. Howard Bender gave me a couple games to look for, and Tapper was one of them.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, they so maybe it was out of commission at the time, but it's upstairs in the rows. You know, it's easy to miss them. Yeah. They have literally hundreds up there, so it's easy. Yeah. My wife is very good at 2 games, which you'd be surprised at the games.
We got inside info. She says they moved it into the bar restaurant.
There you go. So you missed out, bro.
That would have been great information to me
when you were there with your wife. Yeah, my wife is.
I don't think we were aware of it then obviously, but yeah.
My wife is very good at skee ball, and she's also very good at the game where the game where you throw the ball and try and knock the clowns down.
Yep. Yeah.
She can throw. She's like kind of ambidextrous, where she can just pick the balls up and throw them with both hands like this, and she's just knocking them down like crazy. It's like she's better at that game than I am, and which like very sore subject for me. But she just goes, picks them up. She just stands there and just grabs them without even looking down at the balls, and just grabs them with bang, 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 bang. It's really impressive to watch.
Nice. All right, so we got the vacation, talking about fun spot, all that stuff out of the way. But before we go, why don't you tell the people again one more time what you got going on, where they can find your work, all that stuff.
Yeah, Fantasy Alarm is where my stuff is. Anything for free, I post it on my Twitter at Coupe Fiasco. But if you want my rankings, if you want access to all these thoughts, don't buy the Fantasy Alarm draft guide right now. Believe it or not, use promo code COOP25 to get the All Pro, and that'll give your first month 25% off. That first month costs the same amount as the draft guide, and you get the draft guide, but you also get access to everything at Fantasy Alarm. You get all sports, you get DFS. So, like, let's say you just want to do football, you'll get the draft guide, you get access to all our tools, and since it lasts the first month, you'll get the first 2 weeks at least of our weekly rankings, our DFS stuff. You get all Iggy's content in there, a lot of IDP stuff, as well as, Iggy crushes basketball. Basketball is coming around if you want to get a membership. So yeah, go over to Fantasy Alarm. That's where we take all this stuff I talked about today and we boil it down into actionable info. So you can just take that and crush your leagues, man.
Nice. Excellent. Well, Coop, appreciate you coming on, man. We finally made it happen. This was an awesome show. It's made me smile for sure.
Cheers, bro. That's the thing, dude. When you get together with your gang, dude, Boston crew, man, it's a beautiful thing, dude. So thanks for having me on, man. I really appreciate it, dude.
Yeah, I haven't busted this hat out in quite some time. The Scarfish Bowl 14, Red Sox logo.
I was gonna say I just had mine up there, but I rotated it out for the mini helmet. But
nice.
It's right over there, man.
One last thought. How about the Red Sox this year? How are we feeling, man?
What a roller coaster of emotions, man. I mean, I'll say this: you can never take away the fun that we had. So whatever happens, happens. But that run, man, being the best team in baseball for a little while, like it feels good. It feels good to be great, even if it's just for a little bit. So I'm still hopeful for the season, but that was awesome, man. That stretch.
Yeah. They are a couple games out, behind the Yankees at this point. There's like 30 games left.
Still pulling, but for a while there, they looked unstoppable. Turns out maybe not completely unstoppable.
We'll see. September, they generally cool off in September, at least the last few years. So I'm hoping that they can get over that hump. They can get past that hump and the pitching doesn't crumble, because that's the time of year where things start to fall apart. So,
of course, dude. Hopefully they'll fall apart for the Yankees this time and not us.
I'm gonna let you go. I'll be. When's the next time you're on Sirius XM? You go on every night? I don't think.
I know I'm Thursday. So Thursdays and Fridays, 6 to 8 p.m. And then we did get renewed again for the Fantasy Alarm Game Day show, 10 to 11 a.m. on Sundays. So we'll be there. That's my favorite show of the week. Just answering start sits and just getting everybody ready with the DFS and everything. So we are back 10 to 11 a.m. So definitely check that out.
Nice. Sunday. Those Sunday mornings are just around the corner.
I can't wait, bro. Just like you wake up, I make the kids, I wake up and make Lainey breakfast and myself breakfast, and just kind of, I always tune into Sirius XM because I want to hear like overnight what kind of injuries, and Adam Schefter does his news drop, and you get caught up on the injuries and make breakfast, and then it's right into, I update my rankings, go live 10 to 11 on Sirius XM, go live 11 to noon on YouTube and just answer a million questions. Then I jump over to Reddit from noon to 1. Somewhere in there, I kind of try and set my own lineups. During the breaks on the Sirius XM show, I guess I set some lineups, but it's just so much fun just in there with everybody. Who do I start? Who do I sit? Who's going to go crazy today? There's something so special about fantasy when you just wake up on that Sunday. I always remember there's certain players that give you that feeling where there were days where I'd wake up and I would just think to myself, I would just say, what is Calvin Johnson going to do today? You know what I mean? Is he going to score 2 touchdowns? Is he going to score 3 touchdowns? Like, how am I going to, having certain players, what gives me that feeling that I'm going to be real sad when he's gone is Derrick Henry. Anytime I have Derrick Henry and the game's coming on, I see that guy and I'm like, look at this freak. It's
that freak made me $12,000 in 2018.
Right? It's like, look at this monster. He's on my team. We're gonna steamroll these guys today. Like, keep that in mind when you're drafting your fantasy teams. Do the high stakes stuff, do whatever, be nerdy or whatever about it. Always have some sort of home league or work league where you can just draft the players you like watching. If you like watching Lamar Jackson do spin moves, if you like whatever, get those guys. And so that when you wake up on Sunday, you can say, hey, you know what? Patriots are going to win today, and my guys are going to rip faces off, because that's what it's all about, man. I just thinking about it, I'm getting goosebumps. I can't wait, dude.
Nice.
Hey, let me ask you one last question, Joe. Can the Patriots cover in the 4.5 point spread on the Seahawks? Can we win that game? Where do you live on
that? I think we do. I think they're going to be, and I like Jadarian Price, don't get me wrong, but I think they're going to be hurting without Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. And I think we did a good job in containing JSN in the Super Bowl. And I feel like if we can contain JSN, then our offense is better than it was last year. And they already lost a big safety in their lineup. Is out for the year. And I'm kind of feeling positive momentum for the Patriots in this game.
Right. Clint Kubiak left. He took Rick Dennison, a bunch of those guys with him. That's underrated. I mean, you know what? It's an away game, and they're going to be doing all their celebrating and all that. But I'll still take the Patriots to cover on that one. And I'd even consider the money line. It's a new Patriots team. People forget Patriots went into last year $40 million in cap space available because they were probably viewing it as like, this is Vrabel's first year. We're just going to get things going. Next year, we're going to go all in.
I agree.
It just turned, they had all that cap space they didn't spend and rolled a lot of it over. And, turned out they probably should have pushed the chips last year, but they went out and got Romeo Doubs. They went and got A.J. Brown. Like, this team should be a better team than last year's team. So schedule's tough, but I think they could pull that one out, man.
I do too.
Two guys from Boston sitting here saying, yeah, Pat's going to win.
No, well, yeah. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, you know what?
But I am being totally honest about that opinion.
My biased hat says money line. My unbiased hat says take the Pats and the points.
Yeah. There you go. That's a great way to approach it.
Yeah. Cheers, brother.
All right, man. We're gonna get out of here. Hit the like, subscribe, share. Appreciate everybody. Thanks, Coop. Have a good afternoon.